Hey boys and girls, my name's Mrs. Lanning and let's dive into writing. We have been working hard on writing series, writing fictions. That means we're not just writing one book, we're writing a series of books, multiple books that focus on the same character, and that character has been going on different adventures. One book that we've been looking at is Henry and Mudge, and I noticed that in Henry and Mudge, the author, Cynthia Rylant, divides the book into chapters. I know, right? Chapters. That's like a total big kid book thing, and I think you friends are ready to be big kid authors. Now, when I look at the chapters, I see Cynthia Rylant put titles to her chapters. So she had the title of her book, but then she also had names for her chapters. One was called What Is It?, A Good Mother, and A Surprise. In these chapters, I'm wondering how she thinks of the names of chapters, because today we're going to try to see if we can divide our writing into chapters and come up with fun names for it ourselves. Now, I'm noticing in chapter 1, that was the beginning where Henry got the cat. And in chapter 2 was the middle, where the cat took care of Mudge, the dog. And in chapter 3, the ending, the owner of the cat, the true owner of the cat, takes the cat back and they're reunited. Cynthia Rylant must have thought through what would happen in the story and then made each chapter one part, the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that's why she titled What Is It? That was when they found the cat. A Good Mother. The cat was kind of being like a mother to the dog, right? And then an ending, a surprise. The surprise was that they found the owner. Don't you think you could do that too as a series author? You could have chapters in your stories. Some of the stories you've already written, and some of the stories that you're about to write. Readers love chapters because it helps them get excited about what's coming next in the story. Today, I want to teach you that fiction writers often divide their stories into chapters. One way they do this is to break their story into parts. Typically, they do it in 3 parts, like the beginning, the middle, and the end. And remember, the beginning is when we're seeing what adventure they're on, the middle tends to be the trouble that they're getting into, and then the end is fixing the trouble. So, let's give this a try. Remember, I'm working on the story. I've been writing about Sam and how he meets a dog. So let's see. In this story, Sam faced another dog. So remember in my first story, I had Sam, he meets the cute dog, and it was just kind of silly to be afraid. But this time, in this new part of the story, Sam is going to meet a big guard dog. And this time, that dog is not cute, sweet, and friendly, and Sam actually almost gets bitten. So that is what I'm going to write. So let me try this. I want you to watch how I'm going to plan out a beginning, a middle, or an end, fixing the trouble. So I'm not writing the story about the cute dog. That was the first story. Now I'm in my new story about when Sam comes across a big guard dog and almost gets bitten. So in my story, in the beginning, Sam faced another dog. In the middle, he got into the trouble part, which is where he almost got bitten. And then the end is where the trouble is fixed, when he realizes he should be more careful. So, did you see how I divided up the main parts of my story into the beginning, then the trouble in the middle, and then the end where they solve the trouble? Those could be my chapters. So now I can think about what each chapter, what will go inside of each chapter, what I'll write, and I want to make sure that the order makes sense, right? I'm not going to put the ending at the beginning. No, I've got to put it in order. So maybe for chapter 1, I can write how Sam saw a big guard dog. It looked pretty mean. Chapter 2. Sam tried to pat the guard dog through the fence. And chapter 3, the dog tried to bite Sam. But that doesn't really sound like an ending because I said the dog tried to bite Sam, but I didn't really dive into how the trouble was solved. So you know what? I'll add that the dog tried to bite Sam to chapter 2, that trouble part. And then chapter 3 can be how Sam saw the sign that said, "Beware of dog," and realized he needed to be more careful and not reach through people's fences to touch their dogs. So I think that's working. Do you see how I thought through what would happen in my story, and then I tried to divide it into parts like the beginning, the trouble, and then fixing the trouble? And even though I got confused for a minute and realized that my ending needed to be more satisfying, I needed to solve the trouble, that's okay. I was able to try it again. My first step is to plan out a beginning, the middle, and the end. And then the second step is to tell what happens in each chapter. And one last step is that then you can think of snappy titles for your chapters. So let me try that. I usually remind myself what happens in the chapter and then try out a title. So, you know what? This is what I came up with. Chapter 1, The New Dog. Chapter 2, A Big Mistake. Because remember, he stuck his hand through that fence and he almost got bitten. Chapter 3, Beware of Big Dog. So, that way, when you as readers pick up my story and you read it, those chapters will make you wonder and want to learn more about what happens, right? So now you can try this out. Remember how I told you about the character Joe and how he got a new bike and then we talked about how it got crashed and it got fixed? Okay, well, we're ready as a class to work on another story about Joe. So let's imagine that Joe forgot to lock his bike outside the store. And y'all, his dad, his grown-up, told him when he goes to the store, when he goes anywhere, he needs to lock up his bike. But when he rode to the store, he forgot to lock up his bike and it got stolen. So when Joe got home, he was so afraid to tell his dad. He almost lied about what happened because he didn't want to tell his dad that he forgot to lock it up. But then he realized he needed to tell the truth, so he told the truth to his dad that he did not lock up his bike and it got stolen. So let's tell that again. First, Joe took his new bike to the store with his new lock. And at the store, he forgot to lock it up. And when he came out, the bike was gone. And Joe was afraid, but he decided to tell the truth to his dad. So writers, in just a minute, I want you to plan the chapters for this story. But first, a tip. The first thing you do when you think about chapters is you try telling the story first yourself or to your partner, or you try telling it as if saying in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. So what I want you to do now is practice, whether it's with a stuffed animal, with a classmate, with your teacher, whoever, I want you to practice retelling that exact same story of Joe in your own words. Try retelling that story and using things like in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. Go ahead and try that. You can pause this video. Okay, so you've got your story out. And now let's try to add some snappy chapter titles because we've broken it into the beginning, into the middle, and into the end. And in the beginning, like you said, would be when Joe goes to the store and forgets to lock his bike. In the middle, we said would be the trouble, right? When his bike gets stolen and he realizes it. And in the end is when he almost wants to tell a lie because he's so afraid to say that he didn't lock up his bike, but he decides to tell the truth. So now let's come up with some snappy titles. What do you think we could call the beginning chapter? What about the middle? Ooh, and what about the end? All right. So some friends called out some great chapter title names. I heard one friend say, Chapter 1, Don't Forget the Lock. Chapter 2, Oh no, it's gone. Chapter 3, It's Hard to Tell the Truth. Or another friend said that they would title Chapter 1, Stolen. Chapter 2, The Lie. Chapter 3, The Truth. So writers, this work is going to really pay off as you're planning your stories. Writing chapter titles and rehearsing each chapter is a great way to plan a story. So if you start a new story today or any day, give this a try. And at the top of your paper, you can write Chapter 1 and write the title. And then when you're ready to write the next chapter at the top, you can write Chapter 2 in the title of that chapter. So writers, as you stretch out all the parts of your stories, you're writing more. And this means you're often working on stories for more than one day. That means you should start each writing session by rereading what you wrote the last time and then starting the next part of your story so you can remember where you left off. All right, it's your turn, friends, to work on your series books. I can't wait to see what chapters you write and what chapter titles you come up with. It's your turn. Writers, go write.